Welcome to another episode of Storytime. We're on episode 6 now, which is gearing toward the end. It's not the end, but we're headed towards it, and I just hope that you guys have enjoyed taking the journey with this cast of characters. If you're interested in reading this project, once I'm completely done with it, I'll get it all edited and all of that, and I will make this available as an ebook as well, possibly paperback, we'll see. But without further ado, here we go. Everything started happening in a blur, or at least that's how it seemed to me. Lots of screaming, panicking, reacting, lots of regrouping to think, lots of calling, planning, brainstorming, and then finally, when I was scraping the very bottom of my mental energy reserves, quiet. I found myself alone in the kitchen of the building where our operations were housed. Alicia didn't want it called a compound because that was too reminiscent of the garden, but whatever. I was in the kitchen, a plate of something I couldn't focus on growing cold in front of me as I replayed that scene in my head. If the text hadn't found anything from the video feeds, certainly there wasn't anything I'd magically seen that no one else had. And even if I did, there wasn't shit I could prove. So ultimately, it all boiled down to the fact that we didn't know if May had killed Tommy Turner or not. She swore she didn't, but she wasn't exactly the most reliable character. Seems like you've got a lot on your mind. I looked up, surprised, as Tamara took a seat next to me, looking and smelling like she was fresh from a shower. She made herself at least somewhat comfortable around here. Well, I said, giving her my attention, the woman we set out to protect is now in police custody on murder charges for the man we were supposed to be protecting her from. So, I'd say there's a lot to think about. Tamara smirked. You really think so? Because I am feeling light as a bird. As far as I'm concerned, with everything she's done to put that little girl in danger, prison is exactly what she deserves. I'm only sorry that Amelia has to suffer. Right. Amelia. I wasn't taking this as personally as it seemed Tamara was. I didn't hold any animosity towards May beyond the obvious. If I assumed her actions had no ill intent behind them. Either way, though, Amelia was really the primary concern here. None of us truly wanted to see a little girl grow up without her mother if she didn't have to. None of the alternatives, even the latest one, were desirable. You know Family Services is going to turn her over to the wife, right? I asked Tamara, watching her face for a reaction. She's his next of kin. As expected, her brow furrowed, nose wrinkling in distaste. Seriously? Handing the husband's illegitimate child to the bitter wife? That's a very large therapy bill waiting to happen, I finished for her, shaking my head. And that's probably the best case scenario. Who knows what kind of resentment she's going to work out on that child because of what her parents did. I mean, maybe she's a good person. Maybe the concern is unfounded. I don't know. But I do know that something about this isn't sitting right with me. Tamara pushed out a sigh, slumping back in her chair as she nodded. Yeah, I keep playing through it in my head and coming up with more questions than answers. The research team is already on it, I know, but there really is too much that doesn't make sense. So you think she might be innocent too, is what I'm hearing. Innocent is a stretch, Tamara chuffed, rolling her eyes. Honestly, I'm still pissed that she drugged me. Really pissed. But I don't understand why she'd stick around after doing something to Turner to induce a heart attack. I mean, unless she was sticking around to make sure it worked, but she didn't keep him in sight. She went to the bathroom and was about to leave with us. And I didn't get the impression she was antsy about timing, nothing like that. Maybe she's just a terrible murderer, I offered, but Tamara shook her head. Or maybe she's being set up. It's not even a little far-fetched to think Lana Turner might be in on this. Why does she come straight for May as the first suspect? Your husband dies of a supposed heart attack at a public event, and the first thing you do is go hunting down a woman in the bathroom? That makes sense to you? No, actually, I admitted. I saw the whole thing unfold. We saw that little bit of contact between May and Turner before she stormed off, but Lana was all over him. Lana smacked him hard. Minutes later, he's on the ground. Tamara nodded. Think about the things we've used to eliminate a target before, the methods we've employed. An induced heart attack? That's a chemical. May shoved him, but that's just touching his clothes. If Lana had some type of toxin on her hands, with a protective barrier underneath so she wouldn't expose herself to it. So you see what I see. I do, I agreed. And really, what would May gain from Turner being dead? He still owed her money, even if she'd come to a place of accepting he had no intention of coughing it up. She says he owed her money. We really don't know for sure what kind of agreement they had. We've got to find out if there's any proof. Text messages, recordings, anything that can corroborate May's claims. If Turner owed her money and the wife knew about it, along with the affair and Amelia, it could be proof of Lana's motive. And proof of May's lack of one. Pushing out a sigh, Tamara swiped both hands over her face. This would be so much easier with access to everything we had before. Yeah. With full resources, we likely wouldn't have been caught up in this shit in the first place. We're here now, though, so the only thing to do is figure it out. After a moment, Tamara nodded, bringing her gaze up to meet mine. You're right, and I'm sure it'll come. It's gonna happen with time. That's what has you messed up, huh? I teased. You're ready to hit the road, but this mess isn't settled yet. She smiled. Pretty much. You know you don't have to be in a hurry, right? It's not so bad having people around you, especially people who have been through a lot of the same things as you. I'm sure it isn't, but it's just not. She sighed. I've gotten accustomed to being alone. I work at the shop and I go home. I mind my business between. I raised an eyebrow at her. Really? No friends? Nope. Friends want to get to know you, want to know your past, all that. It was just easier, so far, to avoid all that. I would talk to May sometimes since I was renting her place, but outside of that, I kept to myself. Except for Roxy, that is. Thank you for having someone retrieve her for me, by the way. I shrugged. That was nothing really. And besides, I think it helps Amelia a lot too. The little girl was very familiar with Tamara's dog, Roxy, so the animal was keeping her company, comforting her by simply being something she was used to. Yeah, they're little besties, Tamara smiled. I don't think I'm going to split them up when I leave. It's probably best for Roxy anyway. I can't exactly fit her on a bike with me. Would be interesting to see you try, though. Right, I'll strap her to my chest in one of those baby carrier things. I would pay good money to see that, I laughed. For a minute, neither of us said anything, but then I spoke up again. You know, you could at least stick around until the bruises fade. The soreness from our fights haven't even worn off, and you're already trying to run away. Don't do that. The longer I stick around, the more likely it is that I'll have to kick your ass again. Is that what you think happened? Okay, I chuckled. That's what I know. I literally captured you. Only because I was drugged, she countered. Otherwise, please. I showed you at the auto shop. You can handle me. I leaned in, invading her personal space to tell her. Sweetheart, I haven't met a woman yet I couldn't handle. Oh, really? She asked, running her tongue over those soft lips as she leaned in too. You care to back that up with some action? I mean, since you seem so concerned about my lack of socialization, I would think... Before she could finish that statement, I grabbed the back of her neck, tugging her face toward mine. With our lips not even inches apart, my eyes locked on hers. Tamara, if you want me to fuck you, just say so. She smirked. So... That was a mistake. Such a mistake. With every punch, I hit the heavy bag a little harder, trying to work through my frustration with myself at having slept with Wilder. Big mistake. Not because the sex was bad. It wasn't by any stretch of the imagination. It had been hot. Very hot. which was exactly the problem. All this time, I've been keeping to myself, having come to accept a lack of human interaction. In fact, I'd come to appreciate it. Now, one night of sweaty skin-to-skin contact had me completely reevaluating my commitment to the loner lifestyle. Weak. So goddamn weak. Giving my gloved hands a break, I stepped back, trying to catch my breath as I played through it all in my mind again. Wilder had most certainly handled me, and he hadn't even been weird about it after, which was pretty relieving. We were just two single adults who happened to have sex and happened to work together. It didn't have to be awkward now, as long as we didn't make it that way. You need a sparring partner? I looked back to see the man himself approaching me, dressed for a workout himself. Nah, I told him, shaking my head as I turned back to the bag. Just working through some stuff in my head. You need to talk it out? He asked, coming around the opposite side of the bag to hold it in place for me as I peppered it with jabs. With you? No. He frowned. Why not me? Well, most people tend to not want to talk about a person with that person. His eyebrows went up. Oh, I must have made quite an impression on you last night if I'm something to work through in your head this morning. Really? I snapped, dropping my arms to my sides. This is the angle you want to take with me? No, he laughed, stepping between me and the bag, arms extended. I'm messing with you. I'm sorry. Get out of my face. Instead of doing that, he wrapped his arms around my sweaty frame, pulling me into him. Intimacy we hadn't yet built up to, but it didn't really feel out of place. I'm gonna leave you alone, but I did want to say I had a good time with you last night. And if you stick around, we should do that again sometime. A lot of times. All the time. I really didn't peg you as a clingy type. We spend one night together and you're already hugged up on me like we're a couple or something? He chuckled, releasing his hold on me. I'm not being clingy. I just like touching you and looking at you, being inside you, all that. And I don't see a reason to act like I don't. I've done enough acting. I'm over that shit. I have a chance now to just be real, say things that aren't rehearsed, that aren't based on a dossier. I can be whatever I want, and what I want is to be somebody who says and acts on what he's feeling without reservation. I want to know more about you. If you're not into that, I won't press. But I also won't pretend. I bit down on my lip as my gaze dropped to my gloves, considering his words. I got what he was saying. Really. For so long, every single one of us, every rose, every thorn, had been forced to live a kaleidoscope of lives that weren't actually our own. We were whoever the mission briefing told us to be. Now that we were free to pursue a life of our choosing, it made sense to not want to lean on the same facade-driven actions that governed what others saw as our personalities. In other words, to just be ourselves. That depended heavily on knowing who we were and what true desires, went along with that. I couldn't really say that I did. My loner status coming out of the garden had been a decision based in self-preservation, and after a while, I just got used to it. So my desire to get back to it now, the more I thought about it, the more it seemed driven by a desire to get back to what I'd established as my new normal than something I really, truly wanted. It was all so damn confusing. I'm flattered by your attention, since we're being transparent, I told him, crossing my arms. And I enjoyed last night too. You're very good with your fingers and mouth and you know what else. I blushed, shaking my head. Nah, I don't, he smirked. I want to hear you say it. Too bad, I laughed. Just take the compliment and know that I hear you, okay? I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I don't know what I want. But if I do stay, I'll probably let you touch me and look at me and be inside me some more. A big grin spread across Wilder's face, bringing even more beauty to his already incredibly handsome features. Bet. I rolled my eyes. That's all you have to say? Bet? No, but you already called me clingy, so I'm trying not to spook you. He laughed, wrapping his arms around me again. Still too intimate, but still not a problem either. You two have something you want to tell me about? At the sound of Alicia's voice, I couldn't peel myself away from Wilder fast enough. I wasn't trying to generate questions for which I had no answers. Nah, boss lady, Wilder answered for both of us, the epitome of the cool as a cucumber cliche. We're just getting a little better acquainted. Uh-huh, she said, looking between us with a barely suppressed smile. Well, when you're done with that, acquaint yourselves with the meeting room for a briefing. We have an update on this shit with May and Lana Turner. With one last grin from me to Wilder, Alicia turned, leaving us alone in the gym facility. We should probably go ahead and get to that, right? I asked, already starting to take my gloves off. The sooner it's all resolved, the better. Wilder nodded. Yeah. Depending on what comes up, I'll just get my workout in after, so I'm not encroaching on your time. No, I was basically done anyway, I told him. Just gonna, go grab a shower. He took a few steps toward me, getting back in my space. That's probably a good idea. I'll let you get to it. I mean, unless you want some company for that shower. I studied his face, working on the removal of my other glove as I considered his offer. And then I nodded.